Mediation is a process where you sit down and try to work out an agreement between two parties to a divorce. Everybody goes into divorce thinking, well, I want this and I'm not going to settle for anything less. Well, your spouse is thinking the same thing. So in order to try to get to what both of you need, mediation is a great way to do that, to just sort of negotiate a middle ground for everyone. If you go to court, a judge is going to say one person wins and one person loses, in a sense, and you lose control of the process. Mediation allows you to maintain control over what you agree to and what you can live with. When you mediate your divorce in Texas, you come to an agreement, and that gets put into something called a mediated settlement agreement. We call it an MSA for short. And that agreement is binding and irrevocable, at least with regard to your financial situation. If you decide that you and your spouse are dividing up your assets and liabilities in a certain way, once you sign on the dotted line in the mediation agreement, it is a done deal. Now, kid stuff can sometimes be modified later because the courts have jurisdiction over the kids until they're 18 and have graduated from high school. So if things change over time, you might be able to modify the kid issues. If you litigate your divorce, you are going to court. You are going to have to provide a lot of documents to your attorneys. Your attorney is going to have to comply with deadlines that are created by the state, created by the court system. Sometimes you have to designate experts to testify as to certain things, like some financial issues, appraisals of your house. Maybe if there's issues with your kids, you might need to have psychological experts, educational experts. There's a lot more that goes into preparing a case for a trial, and it can be very expensive. Now, when you get to court, you are going to have time in front of a judge. The judge is going to hear your side of the story. The judge is going to hear your spouse's side of the story. Of course, everybody is trying to make the other person look as bad as they can so that they make themselves look better, and hopefully they win. I've heard this said that for people going to trial in a divorce, it should be the absolute last resort, because again, you are pointing out the worst things in your spouse, and they're pointing out the worst things in your spouse, in you. And sometimes families can never recover from that. It's driving a wedge that can never be repaired. And it's really hard to have a good co-parenting relationship after you've been duking it out in court. In our experience, a typical divorce in Texas is probably going to cost anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, depending on how much you're fighting, depending on what's at stake, whether we're fighting about kids or financial situations. If you go to court in Texas, if you go and have a trial, you're probably looking at $20,000 to $30,000 at a minimum, just to comply with all the deadlines, to have the experts that you need, and to pay your lawyer to spend the time to prepare, to attend the trial, to promote your case. Texas courts require mediation in all cases. You are not going to see the inside of a courtroom for temporary orders or for a final trial unless you have attempted to come to a resolution first. The courts are busy, and they want to see if you can come to a resolution with your spouse before you have to see the inside of a courtroom. It also saves you a lot of money and hopefully anxiety and stress if you're able to come to a resolution in mediation outside of a courtroom. If you've been the victim of domestic violence and you're seeking a protective order, a court will not require you to go to mediation before you have a hearing on your protective order. However, in cases where that proceeds to divorce, you likely will still need to go to mediation to see if you can resolve your financial issues, your kid issues. You won't be required to be in the same room as that person, and there would be protections put into place to make sure that you are protected and that you feel safe, so that you aren't feeling pressured by someone that has assaulted you. If you're thinking about the pros and cons of mediation versus litigation in a Texas divorce, please give us a call so we can walk you through it.